Hi there, and welcome to the first week in our Cardi KAL. So that is going to be an adventure in cardigan knitting, and this is our first knit along of 2021. So I'm really excited that you are joining in. If it's your first time here live on Facebook, then I will give you an introduction to the projects we're going to knit and the yarn that we've chosen. So it will be a 4-week event. I know Facebook doesn't really let us go past 2 or 3 weeks on the event section, but it will be 4 weeks. So I'll be here every Friday, 3 p.m. for about 45 minutes. And then the 5th week we'll do a live prize draw. So I've got my ballot box here. Everybody who has signed up for the knit along and purchased the yarn that we've chosen has their ballot already in the box, and you're free to join in anytime along through the 4 weeks. So I will start with the patterns. We have 3 options, one for beginner, one for intermediate, and one for advanced. So the first project is called Olive Basket. I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see it. So this is a beginner project. It would be good for knitting your very first cardigan. It would be good for somebody who just wants something very simple and relaxing with not too much concentration involved, and for somebody who just likes the simple lines. It is designed by Amy Miller. She's a well-known designer on Ravelry. So what I'll do, I will go through some of the details and features so you know what you'll get into if you choose this project or have chosen it. If you're in it already, it's too late. So it has A-line shaping, which will give a nice gentle flare towards the bottom. It has a shawl collar, which is similar to what I'm wearing. It just folds back around the neckline. There is not much positive ease, so that's important to note when you're choosing your sizing. 0 to 3 inches. And the model on the front, which I think is Amy herself, is wearing the very first size, which finishes at 31.5 inches. So that seems quite small, but when you think that there is overlap at the front, that gives you extra, and also your yarn is going to give, so it fits a little bit snug, but you still have room to wear a light layer underneath. If you wanted to wear a heavier layer underneath, a blouse or a turtleneck or a couple of layers, then you really have to size up maybe one size bigger than you normally go. So this one is knit from the bottom up. You would be using circular needles only because you're working the back and the 2 fronts as one. So that means there's no side seams. That's a bonus. There is armhole shaping, and there is a 3 needle bind off, so that means you do not have to sew the shoulder seams, which is another bonus. There is going to be a little bit of short row shaping just to give that nice slanted shoulder line, but we'll get you through that, and we'll have some helpful tutorials and videos posted on the event page. And the pattern is basically done in stocking stitch, knit 1 row, purl 1 row. The borders are in a very textural stitch, which is, I call it the box stitch. I think Amy calls it basket weave stitch. But it's just a little bit like a moss stitch, but more of small squares. So knits and purls. The borders are knit in as you go, which is another great bonus. You don't have to pick up stitches. And the sleeves are set in, so there is some shaping at the top of the sleeve as well. I think really the only thing that you would have to concentrate on is your marker placement. Because the sides have decreases, you'll have to double or triple count your stitches so that you know that you've put your markers in the right places. Short rows, that's a little bit of concentration, but it's quite easy to do once you practice it. You also have the option of If you don't like the open front, you can make button loops at the very end, and we'll explain that further as we get more into the knit along. Button loops will give you the option of having maybe 1, 2, or 3 buttons down the front, so you can pull it across, or you can just have the option of a shawl pin or a brooch to close it. That would look quite nice too. I think in the picture the sleeves look a little bit long. On Amy, they're past the beginning of her thumb, so I think you have to be careful there and measure your own sleeve length carefully to see if you have to reduce the length before you shape the top of the sleeve. So that's really all there is to mention about Olive Basket. Also, I think the tension is pretty standard. If you are a loose knitter, you might have to do a 3.75 millimeter to get gauge. If you're a normal knitter, you're fine to stay with the 4 millimeter. 22 stitches and 28 rows in stocking stitch is a complete average DK or double knitting tension. So there is nothing odd about that one. And I have to see who's watching today. Hi Sharon, hi Lori, hi Louise. Great to see you. Happy New Year to you all. Anybody wants to say where they are from or where they're sitting and watching from, what the weather's like, please feel free to go ahead. So option number 2. This has been a very popular one. I will bring it up to the camera so you can see it a little bit closer. Unfortunately, I don't have color pictures. I only have a black and white printer, but I'm sure you'll get the overall idea. So this one is by another well-known designer, Isabelle Cramer, and she has a very European aesthetic to her design. Mary Shen. It is a top-down cardigan with the lace panels at the front only and the texture stitch on either side. Very nice classic lines. So yes, this one has been, I would say, the most popular choice so far. So she gives a nice range of sizes from extra small to XX large, starting at 35 3/4 finished width around the underarm, going all the way up to 51 3/4 inch finished width. And because it's knit from top down, it does require circular needles. It is completely seamless. That's a great bonus. And there is also very little positive ease. So this one again has 0 to 3 inches positive ease. So you have to be careful when you are choosing your size. If you feel you want to add extra layers underneath, please go up one size larger than you normally wear. The advantage of knitting top down is you can try the cardigan on as you go before you get to the separation of the sleeves at the underarms, and that will allow you to maybe add in a few more increases to give extra width or take away a few increases. The option is yours, and the other option you can add to this cardigan, a few of you I know are going to do it, is the back and the sleeves are entirely plain, which can get a little bit boring in the middle of winter when you need something to really spark your interest. So because she's put a lace border on each side of the front and a little faux cable on either side, and then the double seed stitch to fill in the rest of each front, you can have the same option on the back. We'll give some notes in the events and further along into the week of how to add maybe the lace panel with the 2 border faux cables down the center back. That way it will not be quite as dull and boring, and it gives a nice interest. You know, if you're wearing the cardigan, you turn around, you've got a little flash of extra pattern there that's unexpected. Again, for any of the 3 options, if you're adding length to the sleeves or the body, please make sure that you have extra yardage, that you've bought enough yarn. You don't want to get into trouble with dye loss. And this yarn has been selling out very quickly at the suppliers, so there are some colors we cannot get any more of for the next 3 months. So I'll let you know when we get to the yarn section what colors we still have in stock. So on to option 3. Option 3 is the advanced knitting project, and it is knit from the bottom up. So this is called Blended Woods Cardigan. It's another designer from Ravelry called Carrie Knits. I've had my eye on this one for a while. It has a shawl collar and an open front and cables. So the reason why it has become the advanced option is because of the cable work. There is 1, 2, 3 different cable stitches, and pretty much the entire garment is worked in some type of cable. So you don't get a break on many of the rows. You don't get to do the sleeves plain, you don't get to do the back plain. Everything has a particular cable stitch on it, but that is nothing to fear away from. That just gives you more of a challenge and more experience. So the features of Blended Woods Cardigan are, it does have a shawl collar similar to what I'm wearing. It has nice A-line shaping, which is really well built into the back panel. I'll try to get a picture in here to show you. So it's built into the back center panel and also the front panels right against the front border. So instead of having A-line shaping at the sides, this one has it at the center. It also has some short rows shaping. It's knit from the bottom up with seams, so you're not working in the round like option 1, and it allows 0 to 4 inches of positive ease. So the cable patterns are the honeycomb cable, the zigzag cable, and the center panel cable. It also features set-in sleeves. So there may be a picture of the back so you can see the detail. If not, I did post it on the event page with option number 1, 2, and 3. Oh, here's a picture. So the bottom picture is showing the clever way of incorporating the decreases from the ribbing going up to the waistline. Very well done. A great design if you pick that one. That one's been very popular too. I'm still debating on option number 1 or option number 3. I just can't decide, so I have done a tension swatch for both of them, which I will show you. So now I'll just go over how many skeins it will take. Olive basket, option number 1. Small, so that's extra small, small, medium 1, medium 2, will all take 4 skeins of our chosen yarn, which is the Eco Tweed DK. And then large 1, large 2, and extra large will take 5 skeins. So that's a nice budget-friendly project. It doesn't take much of the featured yarn. Option number 2, oh, it takes even less. Extra small and small take only 3 skeins, and that would give you a size range of 35 3/4 inches around the underarm finished, or 38 1/4 inches. If you choose medium 1 up to extra large, it would require 4 skeins, 100-gram skeins, and that would fit medium 1. That would fit 40 1/2 inches all the way up to 48 1/2 inches. And if you choose XX large, it would require 5 skeins, and size would be 51 3/4. Then for the third option, Blended Woods Cardigan, the first size is extra small. It would require 4 skeins. Small, medium 1, medium 2 require 5 skeins. Large 1 and 2 require 6 skeins, and then extra large and up from there require 7 skeins. So the largest size in Blended Woods is 66-inch finished width. So you have some nice options there in choosing sizing. And okay, so now we'll move on to the featured yarn, because it has 3 different fibers in it, and they're all natural. The colors that we still have in stock and available are the mustard gold, the olive green, the cranberry red, oatmeal, the navy, and that pretty plum color there. So the Eco Tweed has 350 meters, which is a lot more yardage than you usually get in a DK weight yarn. That has to do with the twist. It's a very soft, what we call Shetland spin. It's not tightly twisted, so it gives it a bit more loft and air in between the plies. And it is also, it is organic. It is certified as GOTS, G-O-T-S, Global Organic Textile Standards. This ensures the yarn meets the stringent requirements in harvesting of raw materials, the manufacturing, the milling process, and so forth down the line, right to the labeling process. It's a mixture of wool and alpaca, so the main fiber is the wool, 25% is the alpaca. So with the wool you're getting warmth, you're getting the elasticity, you're getting the durability, and with the alpaca you're getting that slight halo effect, and also the drape and the warmth, because it is animal fiber. And the last percentage is something called Lyocell. I'm not sure if you've come across that in yarns before. It's becoming more popular in knitting yarns as well as clothing and fabrics. It's a natural fiber derived from wood pulp, and it's sourced from sustainable tree farms. So there we have wood, alpaca, and sheep wool. So I will bring the yarn closer to the camera so you can see that slight halo and the lovely tweed bits that run through it. So the tweed bits, probably you're getting about 4 to 5 different flecks of colors, and each skein has different tweed flecks that coordinate with the base color. So the navy has lavender, lighter blue, gray, and black tweed flecks. And the gold has red, teal, navy, and I think a warm brown in there. You almost need a magnifying glass to see them. And the plum color has navy, hot pink, cranberry. I think I saw a little bit of gold in there too. Probably the more subtle one is the oatmeal. This one has creamy white flecks, medium brown, and a soft gold. Very, very subtle, but nice and neutral, nice and classic. So I have knit up my swatches. First I did my swatch in the stocking stitch, because I'm still deciding between option 1 and option 3. This has been blocked, so I've soaked it in the Eucalan for 20 minutes and I've let it dry overnight. It does make a difference if you block your tension swatch. That way you'll really see if you like the look of the stitches, the way they lay next to each other, and if you like the bloom of the fabric. Once it's blocked, you'll find that this yarn casts even more of a halo effect. And then this tension swatch is the honeycomb cable pattern for option number 3. And I really like the texture of this one, and I like that it's the same on both sides. So I have been a good girl and I've done my tension swatches and I've blocked them. Now if you are measuring, usually what I do with my tension swatch is I cast on the number of required stitches according to the pattern, and then I add one extra stitch on each side. So this would have been 24 stitches, and option number 1 wants me to measure 4 inches to 22 stitches. I like to have the edge stitch, which stops the edges from curling and also makes a clear definition of my 22 stitches. The edge stitch I knit beginning and end each row. So when you're measuring, you want to make sure that you have your measuring tool lined up, either from side to side. This is a 2-inch measuring tool, so I have it lined up on the outside of one knit stitch to the outside of another knit stitch. And then all I do is count the knit stitches in between, and for this one it gave me 11 stitches to 2 inches, so I know that I get 22 stitches to 4 inches. And on option number 3, the tension, because of the cables are pulling in more than stocking stitch, I get 24 stitches to 4 inches. But I did have to use a 3.75 millimeter to get the right gauge for option number 3. And I did use a 3.75 to get the gauge for option number 1, which I'm sure will be the same as option number 2. So please take the time to do your tension swatch. Some of you know your tension so well that you don't have to do a tension swatch, but I think it gives you an idea of how the yarn will look and the pattern stitch before you put all that time and effort into it, and you just think 2 inches into the back of option number 3, oh, I just don't like how that cable pattern looks, I wish I had something smoother and plain. So it's a chance to experiment with the pattern, experiment with the stitch, see if you like it, see if you need to improve on your technique a little bit or change your needles. Yes, the yarn is very, very soft. I think everybody is surprised. Everybody is surprised when they see the yarn the first time. You see it on the shelf or you see it on the camera, and you're thinking, ooh, itchy, itchy wool. Because it is that British tweed type of yarn, you would think that it would be itchy, and I'm sure many, many years ago in the 40s and the 50s, the only wool they could produce that had the tweed effect was a pure wool. Lyocell was not around back then, and alpaca I don't think was ever spun with wool. So yes, the yarns have come a long way. The Lyocell gives it a very soft texture, very similar to bamboo if you've knit with bamboo or you wear bamboo clothing. It gives it kind of a sleek, soft handle. And of course it will soften up even more when it is soaked in the eucalyptus and blocked. That lets the stitches bloom and it settles all the unnecessary fibers. Yeah, so happy cast on day, everybody. Has anyone already cast on, or are you waiting for tips and tutorials before you get started? Oh yes, Lori says it has structure and softness. She has it in her hands right now. Can't remember what color Lori picked. I think it was the gold. A lot of you did pick the gold. It's very vibrant and rich looking. Sharon, yes, I will put away one more skein of the red. Sharon is going to size up. Elizabeth would like the plum. That's a great choice. And yeah, so you can add length to any of the 3 cardigans. I think a lot of you are going to want to add length to the blend in woods. It looks a little bit short on the model, and if I decide to knit this one, I will definitely be adding length. So in that case, make sure you do have an extra skein standing by. We do have a layaway. That way you don't have to buy it and wind it unless you really, really need it. So let's see what the length is. These patterns are like books. When you print them off, the Blended Woods cardigan is, I think it's 14 pages long. So there's a lot of information packed in here. That only makes the pattern more concise and easier to read because she's thought of everything. She has put in the written directions as well as the charted directions. And on the very last page, she has put the measurement table. So I'm trying to find the length of the cardigan. Back hip, back bust, waist. Oh, I think I'd have to add it all together. Has anyone figured out the full length yet? Yeah, you have to add H, I, J together, so I need my calculator for that. But generally, I'm 5'8". I'll stand up so you can see this is my old, most favorite cardigan that I was hoping to replace by maybe knitting option 3. So it's a very similar design. It does have an A-line, it has the shawl collar, and it does have some cable work. But unfortunately my cardigan is falling apart, so I need, not falling apart, but getting all fuzzy. So I do need to replace it eventually. So 5'8", I usually wear a cardigan that's 28 inches long for this style. So I think Blended Woods, if you're in my height range, you would want to knit 27 to 28 inches long too. I just don't know how tall the model is, so I can't tell. On her it seems to sit above the hip, and it would be much warmer if it goes past the hip. So that's something to take into consideration, the length of it. Sharon says it's lovely to knit with. Nancy has cast on, she likes the yarn. Yay, Nancy. I can't remember what color you've all picked. I think Nancy picked the plum. Possibly the plum. Okay, so I think what I'll have to do is post the tips and tutorials, because for the option 2, you're starting at the top. So you're going to get into your increases, make one left, make one right away. You're also going to get into your lace work. I think I read that it starts on about round 18 or 20, which is great because that gives you a little bit of space to get those increases done and add some extra stitches before you have to fiddle around with following the chart. But I should be posting the tutorials later today or early tomorrow that will help you with the make one left, make one right as a refresher, the 2 directional increases. Most of you have done them before on shawls and other projects. So if you need a refresher, they'll be in the events page. And then also the short row techniques. I'll post our store video, which gives you the different styles of short row wraps to see which one you prefer to work with. And if you think of anything else that I should be posting in the event page to get you started, long tail cast on, some of you might be wondering what type of cast on to start with, whether it's top down or the bottom up option. Always go with long tail cast on unless the pattern specifies otherwise. The long tail cast on gives you quite a bit of elasticity. It makes that beautiful edge, which I've done on my sample. I can show you that again. And it's very quick to learn and very quick to work with your needles. So long tail cast on. I generally knit a row on the wrong side when I do a tension sample. Again, that's just so that my square lays flat and it's easy to measure. But you would not be knitting a row on the wrong side in your pattern unless it specifies. And then the long tail cast on with the honeycomb cable has a nice slanted edge at the front. That's your right side facing. And the wrong side has the bumpy edge. So that's important to note. Patterns don't usually tell you that. So this is right side edge of the long tail cast on, slanted edge, nice and neat. And the wrong side. See those little bumps? Definitely mark that as your wrong side facing. Okay, are there any other questions that you may have? Have you got into a part of the pattern that is confusing you? Oh, Lori's got her cakes all wound. Yes, please do your swatch. The other thing I noticed too, because I always read over the patterns before I suggest them, just to make sure that they are well written and that there are no issues that people have mentioned on Ravelry. You never go wrong with the pattern by Isabelle Cramer. She does so many patterns and she's so well known for having very good directions. Her pattern too is very long. Just the way she writes it out, she gives you beautiful charts to follow, nice and large. Each chart is for a different size for the lace panel cardigan. Going all the way to XXL. So that's why there's so many pages. She'll give you the charted, and then she gives you the written directions for the lace work. I know some of you do prefer the written directions, following one row at a time, and then some of you prefer the charted directions. I do prefer the charted directions because it is more like following a visual picture. I can see where I am, I can see what the next stitch is coming up, and I can see how it relates to the row above and how the stitches have to move in this particular order. They're kind of moving out like a V shape. Charts are more the European style, and not everybody has been able to learn how to read one. But pretty much when you read a chart, you read right to left, same way you're knitting for your right side row, and then you read row 2 left to right, which is your wrong side row, and that's because you're coming back on the opposite way. So when you see your chart, you'll also notice that the rows are numbered on opposite sides. So row 1 is a right side row, it's on the right hand side, and then you'll follow across to row 2, which is starting on the left hand side. So that means you have to read row 2 from left to right. That's really the only thing you have to remember when you're following a chart. All the symbols are marked clearly at the bottom for the decreases, the yarn overs, and these are universal symbols, so you'll see them in every designer pattern as the same abbreviation and the same symbols. Now, if you want to incorporate the lace panel down the center back, you're going to have to add in markers, and you can use your chart according to whatever size you've decided. So say you're doing the extra small to the small. What you want is the chart to start and end the same way. So you have 2 pearls at the beginning, and then you have your little faux cable, and then you have your lace panel in the middle, and then you have 2 pearls and the faux cable and the 1 pearl. For the back center panel, you need to have the exact same stitches that you start with at the end. So these particular charts are set up for the front. So you have to think the front is going to have a ribbed border. That's why they only have 1 purl stitch there. So please add in another purl stitch. You can either add it in, pencil it in on the chart, or just use your memory and make a note. So 2 pearls to start, you have to have 2 pearls to end. And that means it's centered and it looks the same from either direction. So yes, if you're making changes to option number 2 by putting in the lace panel, it's really as easy as just centering the number of stitches that you need to create that lace panel. So it looks like it would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 23. So you'd have to mark the center 23 with new markers, which are not accounted for in your instructions. That would be very pretty to see some of you put in a little bit of a lace panel down the back. The tools that you should have for following your patterns are probably what you have at home, but for those of you who might not have followed a charted pattern before, highlighters, very important. Pattern board such as this. So this will have magnets to hold your pattern in place, and then it has a very powerful ruler magnet that you can adjust by moving it up one row at a time, and that will keep your place on your pattern. It will not move around. You can close it up like a book, flip it over, close it up. I can demonstrate that, I think. Yeah, close it up, it's nice and safe. Nobody will accidentally move the ruler on you, but keep it in a safe place anyway. And then you can also use sticky notes. They're great as little rulers too. 1 or 2 across a chart. Let me find a chart so I can show you. And they'll be nice and bright, easy to see, and you can move it up as you go. So most of you will have some sticky notes at home. And then the newer method that we've been using for the last few years are the sticky tag notes, which were never invented for knitters, but knitters absolutely love these. And it is like having a highlighter, but it's a removable highlighter. I think I'll have to bring that up to the camera. I'm too far away. There, so it's a removable highlighter. It doesn't damage your pattern. You could use the same pattern over and over again. It's just sticky on one end. It holds firmly in place, and then you can easily see the row below to make sure that what you're doing on the row above lines up. So these are great. They come in packages of, I think, about 200. I know most of you have gone out and bought them all from the Dollarama, so who knows if they've restocked now, but eventually they will. And you get all these bright, fun colors. You can also use them as little tag notes to mark your chart section, so you don't have to go through your booklet of pages to find the page that you were working from. There's lots of different ways you can use them. So highlighter, if you have that, just to mark off one row at a time, but remember it is permanent. You'd have to have a photocopy of your chart for backup, just in case, you know, you have to rip out and start again. But that never happens, does it? So sticky notes and sticky tag notes, and then the pattern board, which we usually have in stock. We'll get a new shipment in next week. So the tools of the trade, knitting needles, everybody has their preference. Some like wood, some like stainless steel, some like carbon fiber, and some like the aluminum. Whatever you feel works best for you. You can have a pointy tip or more of a blunt tip. I think I will be using my wooden needles. I did use the wooden for my samples, so I think if I were to switch needles and go with a steel or aluminum, that might change my tension on the actual sweater. And I don't want to do that, and I don't want to have to do my tension swatch twice. So what I was going to mention about Mary Shen, which is number 2 option, her tension is a little bit odd. It's 20 stitches by 30 rows in stocking stitch after blocking. Now I mentioned earlier that the standard double knitting tension is 22 stitches and 28 rows. So I think that I was able to get, she's saying 20 stitches on a 4mm needle. That's the largest needle called for in the pattern. And I was able to get 22 stitches on a 3.75. Just my style of knitting may be different than yours. So I think most of you would be able to get 4mm 20 stitch tension. But the secret is you do have to block your square, because you might find, as I found, after blocking my square, I didn't stretch it, I didn't pin it, I didn't steam it with an iron, I just soaked it in the Eucalan for 20 minutes and then shaped it to a nice square and let it dry flat. And then in the morning when it was dry, I took the full measurement. But what I noticed is that the stitches do spread out just slightly, and that's because of the Lyocell and also the alpaca. The alpaca needs a little bit of air to breathe or room to expand. So yes, I think we've decided now we have to block our tension squares. Debbie is saying she's using Knit Companion. Yes, that's a great bonus too. For those of you who do not have it, you may be able to find it in your app store. And Sharon has just finished casting on 293 stitches, and she did it all with a long tail. Congratulations, Sharon. That is a really hard feat, because you just never know how much yarn to take for the long tail to get that many stitches. Okay, so my final little thing is our weekly trivia. So I'm sure you were all wondering this, as I was, sitting there doing my tension samples. Where does the word cardigan come from? Cardigan was named after James Broodnell. He was the 7th Earl of Cardigan, a British Army major who led the charge of the Light Brigade at the Battle of Balaclava during the Crimean War. Now, I'm going to take a random guess. So we're going to do the same thing we did with our last knit along. Every week we'll have an incentive trivia question. But because I will have a hard time without Super Sandy choosing the first guess, I will just take a random correct guess. So we want to know one of the years. You don't have to be exact for the era, just one of the years that the Crimean War took place. Okay, so anybody who is ready to post away, then they may be the winner of an incentive ballot. The incentive ballot will go into the ballot box along with your original ballot for signing up for the knit along, and that just gives you an extra chance of winning the grand prize. I will have the grand prize on display next Friday. Today my table was crowded with all these notes and extra tools, etc. So I hope your cast on goes well, and that you don't stay up past 2 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. knitting. Oh, we've got some answers coming in. That's great. Lots of history buffs. History buffs and knitting buffs. It seems to go together. So enjoy your weekend, and I will be back next Friday at 3 p.m. And hopefully by then I've decided which cardigan I'm going to do and I can actually cast on. And in the meantime, I will post whatever tips and tutorials I can in the event section. Thanks for watching, everyone.